Here. I called this meeting today because I was seeing in some of the threads, like help with bottom lines, help with step one, help with getting sober. And that foundation is so critical. Like if we're not getting that foundation right, then we can flounder around for a long time. And it really is important to not feel alone. You know, it's easy to be deep in our insanity and feel so alone, because part of the hallmarks of sex and love addiction is confusion and despair. Anybody ever felt confusion and despair? You can just wave your hands. We can do the wave if we want. Confusion and despair, like what should I do? And usually it involves a qualifier. And so for those who are new or nearly new, I want to define what a qualifier is. A qualifier actually is someone, who helps you to recognize that you're qualified to be a member of Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous. So that's where the qualifier came. The word came. But here's the thing. Not every person you've dated or been married to is a qualifier. So a qualifier has behaviors and actions and words that are crazy making. And so we tend to attract them when we don't have good boundaries. And when we have good boundaries and great self-esteem, like part of what we want to do is to be able to love ourselves like our higher power does. If I love myself like my higher power loves me, there's a lot of stuff I'm not going to put up with, because I recognize that I am a divine child of God. God don't make no junk. And so when we're bringing in people that are cheaters, abusers, users, losers, and confusers, those are people that don't belong in our life. Now, we have tended to say, maybe I can just be a little tougher. That's what I said when I was married to my flagship qualifier. That was a cheater. He wasn't physically abusive. He was emotionally abusive. Cheater, abuser, user, loser, and he was a big time confuser. Like people who say they love us and then they jack us around. Let's all just scream. Love needs to look like love, feel like love, and sound like love. And when it doesn't look like love and feel like love and sound like love on a consistent basis, it's probably a qualifier. And so that doesn't mean that it's going to look like, sound like, and feel like love all the time. Relationships aren't that cut and dry, because we're all imperfect people. So we're all going to do things that are imperfect, and we're going to hurt other people's feelings, and other people hurt our feelings. And so the stronger and healthier we get in recovery, the better we're able to deal with those things. So, but that's a qualifier. A qualifier is someone who it feels like they don't have your best interest in mind. It doesn't feel like they're about emotional generosity and understanding. It usually feels like they're about taking, and they're about something that is for ourselves, or themselves, like they're trying to get something for themselves. So it doesn't feel like a friendship. Like part of what my aim is to have a healthy relationship is that it feels like a friendship. It feels like how my girlfriend's friendships feel is mutuality, concern, and care, and consideration. So it doesn't mean that I'm making who I'm dating, I think they should be the same way as my girlfriends. That's not the case. But there should be a feeling of this is a friend. So qualifiers don't have that feeling. So, I've been married twice, and my first husband was 20 years older than I am, and he was a wonderful man. we grew apart, and I didn't know that I was a sex addict then, but it had a significant, reason was that, he had a very low sex drive and we weren't intimate very often. And so that's a journey, but he was a good person. And so I wouldn't call him a qualifier at all. Now, husband number 2 was my flagship qualifier. And so that was a disaster. So I want to, get those distinctions clear. So I'm going to read one of the questions in the chat for now. Are we narrowing the definition of qualifier as someone who we act out with, someone who was affected or hurt by our addiction may show that we need the program? It qualifies us too, so to speak. Yes. So it doesn't always mean someone you acted out with. Of the 40 questions on our list about sex and love addicts, I only answered yes to 8 of those. And I only answered like, hell yes, to 5 of them. But it was like 1,000% on those 5. And so why that's important in relation to this point is that in our love addiction, somebody can be a qualifier and we may not ever even really connect with them because we're obsessed with them. We fantasize about them. We dream of them. So love addiction doesn't always show up in acting out with somebody. It certainly can. So someone else has posted, I'm curious if someone can be a qualifier if they are generally kind and supportive, and this is one of the things that makes the relationship hard to let go. So that's a great distinction, is that, my first husband was that. He was very kind, very supportive. We had one argument in 10 years, and it was about the laundry. And it was a benign argument. So I would never call him a qualifier. So if someone is generally supportive and kind, but you're just not a match, I've had 6 sober relationships and 5 sober breakups. And so 2 of those breakups were with very nice men that we just weren't going to be a match. And it was very hard to break up with them because I knew that I was going to break their hearts. But the sooner that breakup happens, the better, because both people are getting more and more entrenched. So if someone is supportive and kind, but you're not a fit for a long-term relationship, that would make them hard to break up, but that would not make them a qualifier. Does everybody understand that? Okay, good. Yeah, that a qualifier is not always someone qualifier is not someone who you simply date and need to break up with. So if there's a question here or qualify, Norma, is there a question about that? I didn't think my ex-partner was a qualifier, but less than 24 hours after our 2.5 years ended, he went on a dating site looking for a long-term relationship. He moved on immediately. We had a lovely relationship, but it did come to an end. Like you said last night, I can never break up or let go. Yeah, I married those 2 people because I couldn't break up with them. So this doesn't mean that person is a qualifier. It's not unusual for us to end relationships and either one of us move on. Like I always say, no matter how short the relationship is, we need at least a month, between relationships. And typically multiple months if you've been together multiple months or certainly multiple years. Like that time to reboot and refresh and really get back in touch with our own intentional autonomy is really important. So I don't perceive that just because the minute you broke up, he went on a dating site looking for a long-term relationship. That means, he might not be so into his own personal growth, but there's a lot of people who aren't into their own personal growth. So I think that you would be able to say that that's sad and that's hurtful, but it doesn't necessarily, mean that he's a bad person. There's a lot of men who do not want to be alone. There's a lot of people who don't want to be alone. Now we get to know that we're going to process through these things. So I'm going to continue on, and then I'm going to circle back with the chat in a minute because I want to dive into these first 3 steps and how we work them. So let's go. So step 1, we admitted we were powerless over our sex and love addiction and that our lives had become unmanageable. So when we get here, it's not a pretty day. It's not because the birds are singing and you're going, I'm looking for a brand new women's club where I'm going to meet some super cool women. It's usually a painful day. It's a sad day. And so it's a hard day. And so we get here really not knowing what the problem is. Did any of you really understand what the problem was? Like I knew I was messed up around relationships and around dating, but I didn't really know. I had no idea. And so to really come to terms with how broken we are around love is an important part of our journey. And that just happens over time and sobriety. So one of the first things we need to do when we admit we're powerless over our sex and love addiction is get sober. Like work on getting sober. And so that means the setting of the bottom lines. And so the bottom lines are the things that help us face life with a clear head and a clear mind. So that's the bottom line. And the top line are the things that help make us happy, that help us really live a joyful life, no matter where we are in our sobriety. But so many people come in and they don't know how to set a bottom line. They don't know how to describe or define sobriety. So that's what we want to do, is define what the bottom lines are. Now, one of the best ways that we define what the bottom lines are is by looking at what got us here. Like what drove you straight to S.L.A.A.? Probably that pattern. Like in S.L.A.A, we're looking for patterns. We're looking for patterns of our sex and love addiction. And it takes time to see those patterns. But a lot of women come to us and the pattern is they're cheaters. And they've cheated on their husband multiple times. And they've cheated since they began dating. So that's one kind of pattern. And then a lot of women come to us and they have challenges around porn and masturbation. And so they suffer in that area. And so that's had either been a long time or a lifetime, or it's a current situation. A lot of women come to S.L.A.A who are very much like me. We're full-blown flaming love addicts. We ride the high of the new dating, and then we crash down when the love isn't there any longer. And we just go from person to person to try to find that love. And I call that lava. So because of our own brokenness within, we're looking for lava. And it's a healthy quest for love, attention, validation, and approval. So we're looking for love, attention, validation, and approval. I'll refer to this a lot because almost always we can see how our dysfunction leads back to this quest for love, attention, validation, and approval. You can also add there a whole long line of different A's. Acceptance. We're looking for acceptance. We're looking for acknowledgement. So in that quest, we have our pattern. And so love addicts tend to look to other people to fulfill them. And, I just knew that someday I was going to find the perfect person to love me perfectly. And I knew if I just kept looking, I would find the perfect man. And I am here to tell you, I haven't found the perfect man. But the beautiful thing about that is today I'm not looking for the perfect man. I'm looking for a healthy companionship. And one of my prayers regularly is for God to help me learn how to love things that in the past I have deemed as, unacceptable. And those are just people's normal foibles. Everybody has faults and foibles. And so, I've prayed for God to help me learn how to accept those, because my love addiction is just so strong. And that love addiction is so strong because of so much abuse that I experienced. Verbal, physical, sexual, spiritual, like so much abuse at an early age, that the little girl in me, that sweet little girl, is on a quest because she's going to find someone who's not ever going to do any of those things whatsoever. Unconditional positive regard. And so it's not realistic. That's not realistic. There isn't a human alive that's not going to disappoint us. So I pray to learn how to be mature and be able to handle those situations when somebody does a normal mistake, that I'm able to learn forgiveness. So that's a pattern of love addiction, is that we're looking for something like that. So we want to look at our bottom lines. So based on what got me here, it was another dating disaster. It was another roller coaster romance that went high, high, high really fast and dove really low really fast too. So my first bottom line I set was, I no longer can do the he's the one syndrome. The he's the one, looking at everything that we do, everything that goes on, and like really putting us in a situation that we're looking for perfection. So that he's the one thing is not something that we can ever do. So that plus no physical intimate contact for 30 days or 10 dates or more. This is just basic. 30 days, 10 dates or more. Nothing comes, some of you know this, unbuckled, unbelted, unzipped, unhooked, or unsnapped for 30 days or 10 dates or more. And so the reason, and then there's a full dating plan that goes around that, but this is a bottom line for me. And so that means that, I might not have had sex with somebody in the past for that 30 days or 10 dates, but I'd be doing all kinds of other rip-roaring fun activity. But then I'd get heartbroken when I realized that we weren't monogamous, even though it was, maybe more intimate than I wanted, but it wasn't sex. It's still, I realized that it still was not good for me to be having contact intimately with my upper body. I'm trying to really be diplomatic here this morning on Sunday morning. It wasn't healthy for me to be doing things that other people might deem okay. You know, like other people might think that that's okay for them. But for me, I really needed to realize I want to be monogamous. I don't want to feel like some guy's being, you know, physically intimate with me, even though it's not sex. But then maybe the next night he has a date with another chick and he's being physically intimate in that same way with her. No, 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 no. So I began to really refine that bottom line. And so that was a pattern in the past of being intimate, even though it might not be sex, but soon. So I got to set that bottom line. And it wasn't until later that I got into recovery and broke up with people that I had to set bottom lines of no checking out their Facebook page, no, you know, cyber stalking in any way. And so that was later, but that is true. And then my other bottom line is that, or at that time, was not chasing. Like I was a chaser. You know, I thought now that, you know, women's liberation set us all free, that not only could I call a guy, like I'm confident and I want to exercise my confidence and I want to call and I want to, you know, reach out. So it has to be a mutual investment. So if I'm the only one who's doing the calling, I don't ever get the chance to see if this person is bona fide interested in me if I'm doing the chasing. So I want to feel, okay, it's clear this person really is interested. And then over time, then I can call and have that mutuality. So those are just an example of some of my bottom lines. And so other bottom lines are no cheating and no doing, this was another one of mine, no having conversations with any man if he's married that his wife couldn't hear. No doing anything with a man who has a girlfriend or a wife that she wouldn't see, like, you know, like, or that she would feel comfortable seeing or hearing. So I want to be a safe woman around my girlfriends' husbands. And I'm very grateful to say I am a safe woman. And I don't worry about what I'm going to do if, you know, somebody's husband comes on to me. I've got really clear, distinct lines around that now. And I didn't. I've had a long list of being involved with married men. So that was another pattern, that no more married men. And it's so funny. Thank you. Occasionally, LinkedIn is so funny. LinkedIn has my married men qualifiers categorized. Every now and then it's like, come on, people, you've got to be kidding me. And then the other day on this new job I have, one of the customers called in and he's the exact name of a qualifier. Like, God, what are you doing? And I just get to laugh and say, thank you. I get a new life now. I don't need to feel shame about any of these kinds of things. So, I want you to set a bottom line right now. And so I want to open, but first let's take 5 minutes and I'll time this. And I want you to think about your own bottom line and set your own bottom lines. And if you've been around the program a while and you've already done this exercise, I'd like for you to look at those again. And are there any distinctions? Is there anything else you need to add? Okay. And if you have any questions, I will open the chat.
I have a question.
Yes, go right ahead.
With things that really are not in our radar.
I'm sorry, say it again.
I assume we don't need to include things that are never been or ever will be in our radar. Like,
yes, absolutely. So, you know, there would be just, you know, it's a bottom line that I don't date somebody who's cheated on me, but those are there's certain things that are givens for us. So I want you to look at your pattern that got you here and set bottom lines around that. And as you get further and further, you know, you can continue to change those, but good point.
I have a question. Hi, I have a question.
Yeah, go right ahead.
I want to write something around lava because I know I'm needy in that area, but how much of it is okay to ask for in a partner? Because I don't want to just say I have to do it all myself. Or do I? I don't know.
So I think your bottom line around lava would be something about your bottom line is learning how to give yourself lava so that you're not always looking to a man to give it. So
Okay.
that's or noticing and being cautious of looking to a man for lava that you need to be giving to yourself.
Okay. How much of it is okay to ask for in a person, though, if there is an answer to that?
Well, I think that the defining line there is if I'm having to ask for guidelines from somebody else around lava, we might not be a match. You know, like you want your natural give and take with somebody, you know, to like they want to spend enough time with you that you feel cared for. They want to talk to you enough on the phone that you feel cared for. If there's so much that's not just basic, then that person is possibly not a match for us.
Okay.
You know, because we don't want to, it's just always going to make us feel crazy, you know,
Yes.
like it'll always make us feel like this person isn't really into me.
Can I give you an example?
Let's hold it till I want everybody to have a minute to write their bottom lines, and then let's do.
Can I ask
Alicia,
a question?
can I?
Oh,
Sure.
go ahead.
Raise your hand because I have my hand raised. Oops.
Okay, go ahead, Nicole.
So a quick question. Generally, it seems like I know one of my patterns has been being with men that have porn addiction and finding that out only usually by snooping or because maybe they're not completely honest. But it seems like it's hard to find any man these days that doesn't have some sort of addiction with that. But maybe that, I don't know if that would be something that would be considered a good bottom line.
Absolutely.
I mean, how do you know? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
But I guess, yeah, I don't know.
I think that for our discussion right now, let's just put it on your bottom line. Like the whole concept of how do you know, like I want to keep our discussion this morning really refined to these steps. Those are great conversations, trust me, but they're more than the scope of our time together today. Okay. And Sydney, I think you had a question?
Hi, yeah. So I'm very, very new to this, like a few days in. So for me,
welcome.
It's all the love addiction, so the obsession, all that. So I feel like my main bottom line is no dating until, I mean, I'm having a hard time saying a year right now, so maybe till the steps are done and then reevaluate. But besides for no dating and no sex, because my addiction starts once I'm in it. So if I don't have that person, then I'm not obsessing. So, you know, is there anything else really?
I think that's really great. So, you know, what you're really saying is you're brand new in the program and that you have heard how important it is to take a year off. Mm-hmm. And I absolutely underscore that. And so if you're brand new and you're in the program, then that is the first bottom line is like really no dating apps, no flirting with guys, no giving your number out. Do you know how hard it is to learn how to say no to giving your number out? And ladies, there isn't anything that I've seen women lose their sobriety over as much as dating and dating too soon, because we have to learn how to set boundaries. We have to learn that I am the prize here. You know, you are the prize. God don't make no junk. You are an amazing woman. And so when you're like getting involved with the wrong kind of people and not able to get out, all that means is that you don't realize what a gift you are, what a prize you are, and how precious you are. So taking that year is so important to learn how to build that relationship with your higher power that's just rock solid, and build your relationship with your fellows and create your circle of 10. Your circle of 10 women are the women who you probably don't talk to every day, but they're all in your circle and they know what's going on in your life. So you're talking to women, you're building this community. That's our 5 minutes. So that time that you take is a year. That means you're dedicating that year to yourself and to keep your